Okay, so I think I've got a clearer idea of pretty much what it is that I want to build. Um, at least I'm going to try to talk through it. I think I'm just struggling to find time to just sit and think about this and get all the ideas in my head. So I had a particular problem at work where I needed to make some code changes and then see what that does. And again, this is all based on moments like those when I have a problem, an actual problem that needs to be solved, and I'm thinking to myself, what is the ideal reality that I wish existed right now in terms of this issue? And what the ideal reality was is that I would make a code change and then run something from the console and see immediately what that means. What does this code change mean? I mean, if that summarizes it, it does. I mean, that's basically it. Of course, there can be a discussion around the tooling, like does it have to be from the console? I mean, in this case, it would, because I want it to be fast. I want it to be fast, and I want it to. Right, so fast means that it should be local, and fast also means that that everything should be local. And what does it mean for what does it mean to enable this? Just this, right? I mean, I suppose this is the first thing that I should make clear and upfront is that we just want to be able to say, for this given code change, what is different? So we have one, and in order for that to occur, you need two sets of code, right? We have two sets of code, code A and code B. I mean, maybe I should just write this out. Okay. I don't know where to put this. I don't know what to call it. I don't know. Overview. Okay. You have two sets of code, A and B, let's call it. Then we want to know what does code A produce, and then what does code B produce, right? And then you compare. Oops. Okay, so two sets of code A and B. What does code A produce? What does code B produce? And then, of course, we have usage as well. And we have to talk about what does it mean for code to produce something. Firstly, what does it need? The code itself is just a set of files. It's a directory with a bunch of files in it. And and we execute the code, and we pass something into the code. So I've done like an overview here. Like we have something called a runner, and it, into the runner is a piece of code which I didn't put, and then there's a series of actions that occur, and then presumably that produces a set of outputs. So yeah, maybe I should write that out. Okay, so what do we have? We've got what do we have? We've got the code, which is a directory of files. Then we have a runner, which is just a piece of code. And then we have actions, which is, I don't know how to define the actions. Then we have outputs. I don't know how to define that either. And then what else do we have? We have the what did I call it again? Usage. So I mean, I suppose the usage really is action is a list of actions plus a list of outputs. Right? So we store in, if we design the code in such a way, what am I doing wrong? If we design the code in such a way that where everything, all the interactions go through a particular filter, or no, particular, what, a particular what am I trying to say? A particular door, a particular, what am I trying to say? Like Redux. You perform all the actions through some function, right? And you give them a name and parameters in some standardized way. And then even the user interface, as you click on everything, it goes through that intermediary, like a proxy or something. And then that allows you to store all of the behavior, even in the wild, so that you can capture what it is that people are doing to it. So, I mean, how do we talk about that? So that means you need to be able to store every action. And then to do that, you use a proxy intermediary function like Redux, and then i.e. we have some kind of function action, and then it takes a name and then parameters. Let's call it a string. Parameters, which is a name, string value any, and an array of those, right? Something that you can serialize. Must be serializable. Okay. Right. So you have to write your code in that way. Must write the code in this way. Even the user interface, so you can capture every usage, /serialize every usage. Okay, and that's just the input. Okay, this is just the input. Now for the output, it needs to be serialized as well. And and we haven't even defined what output means. Serialized. Output must be serialized. And how on earth do we do that? I don't know. Output must be serialized. Right, and the output is really just, it's not really the output. You know, we're not capturing the entire, the whole, everything that the software is, so that we can recreate it. Rather, we're just capturing something. You know, so, I don't know, for example, okay. For example, did it crash? Did it crash at some point? Is a certain value correct? So for, you know, like, so in a browser app, is a DOM element equal to something? 1, 2, 3, or welcome to my website. I don't know. And then we need some kind of generic way to write a piece of code that defines an output. Right? So we need a generic interface or a way to just write a function and then register it or something and say, okay, this is another output, and then have it be able to capture anything that we want out of the piece of software. At any stage, it needs to run and, you know, and check a value somewhere. So, yeah, which is, yeah, which is weird. I mean, how would you write that? Okay, so output must be a standardized approach to, it's not right grammar, writing functions that can capture anything, right? So you say function, no, so you say add output, and you give it a name, and you say title, and then it is a function that takes in something called get or something, and then you say get title equals hello, welcome to my site. Okay, I mean something like this. I mean, this doesn't look good, but the basic idea is that I'm not sure if you should pass in something called get like a function, but it's, you want to be able to just on the fly say, okay, now I want to check this, and then just write a function for it and then add it to the tests. And that function should happily be able to check anything, and you want to be able to write it as cleanly as possible. So, you know, in order to get this to work, you would have to have some kind of central state, and then the get function is just accessing that state. And then everything in the state is referenced by a name, by a string. I think that's right. So all state must be accessible via a string, right? And then we can do that. And then if there's a crash somewhere, it must be recorded somewhere, recorded in the state somewhere. So then we can say, so we can say get error, right? Okay, fatal error. And then the test will be get fatal error equals null, something like that. I don't know. Is that right? So we have a generic way of, we have a I can't think of the right word. We have a block that takes in all the actions that could possibly occur to this app, all the different things that could possibly happen, including user input. So it's coming in and it's hitting these actions, much like Redux, and then we have another way of just capturing what happens. And presumably, to capture what happens, it can't just be a function, that you call and ask. It also needs to be the other way around, like an event where you register and say, I need to know whenever this value changes, like fatal error. Okay, so what's next? So we've rewritten all the code like that. It's worth discussing how it is that one would begin to do that and lay that out. But, okay, now once you've done that, now you can capture, in the wild, you can capture the stuff and presumably just send it off somewhere, right? So you send it off to a server that's just capturing the actions that come in and then the outputs that result. And I'd like to get very specific about what that would look like. Then you want to be able to pull that down onto your computer, cache it somewhere in the file system. It's going to be there, and then you will be able to take your code base, the state of your code in a certain state, then boot it up, and then take your list of stuff that you've recorded from in the wild usage, and just feed in. Okay, this is what happened. This is what happened. This is what happened. Then check the outputs that you're getting with your code base, and then compare it to the outputs that you recorded in the wild, and then you can just see. Okay. This changed, this changed, this changed. And then what happens is that whenever some issue comes up, or whenever a requirement comes up, whenever someone says to you, in your app, I need you to make sure that this happens, then you just write it inside of your test functions. Right? It's kind of like a unit test or an integration test, but really what you're doing is you're saying, look, I want to make sure that when the person uses the app and then does this, this, and this, I want to make sure that this occurs. That is how my manager, the person that I'm working for, communicates to me what they need from me. They're basically expecting a series of actions and then a result. And I need a way to codify that and to save it. And not just that, I also need a way to not just codify that, but then also to make sure that something like that keeps occurring even with other usages that I haven't noticed. So yes, I can say, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens. If I can you know, design things in a way that you can codify it, and that's what I've just laid out. That's very useful, but it's just one path, and there's all these other paths that are going to occur when people are using it, and not just random people, but also, you know, the people that will report to me about it and say, "Oh my God, it's not working." You know, this behavior is bizarre, and it's because they used a specific path. They clicked on this, then they selected this, then they did this, and then it broke, and it's this unbelievably difficult problem to try to understand why it is that occurred. And that's the thing that I'm trying to solve and to catch early, and to try to. I always think of the simplex method. The way I think of it is that you have the space of possibilities, and you're trying to narrow it down. You're trying to shrink the space of possibilities. And I think with this sort of approach, you could shrink that space way down. It's like every path that you watch, and right. So there's plenty of benefits to this. I mean, you'll have a clear view of what it is that people are using this for. And anytime you make any changes, you'll be able to check based on all the things that people are doing with this thing. Did I break anything? Yeah. I hope that's clear. I don't know. Now I have to think, like, why am I, recording this? I mean, because I kind of want to do this as a discussion about code. I watch so many videos about people talking about writing code, and it's like this discussion that I just sit and listen to, but I never contribute to it. And I really think that this is valuable. This is a valuable thought and approach. And I want to get involved. I want to get involved in the discussion, in an open way, in a humble way, but in a confident way. I really think this is a good approach. It sounds to me like a really good idea. I'm not sure if it's going to pan out, if I'm missing something. And so, and I think that the best way to communicate this would be to write some code, somehow like have a generic, I've laid out the exact, like, what you need to do in order to enable this. I want to formalize that, and then to create sort of a prototype, a sort of a working framework that you can just plug and play, that you can just drop, that you can use to start a possible way of doing this, that you could use to start a project, and then potentially turn it into like a web service. I'm thinking, I'd love to be able to make money off of this, to create something and then have people pay like a fee to use it, like a GitHub. That would be nice. Yeah. And, I guess I was going to see if I can build, see if it's possible to build a, I guess this is really what we're talking about, is like a state machine, like another state machine. but built for this purpose. So it's kind of like Redux, but it's built purposefully to enable. I wonder if this actually exists already. I need to check that. Or something similar, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I still need to see about what are the practicalities behind capturing usage. But yeah, I think this is definitely a move forward, and for me at least, it's definitely a big step to try to do this in public. Okay, thanks for watching.